My name is Elliot Carter. I'm 44 years old, a financial systems architect in Raleigh, North Carolina. But 2 years ago, on what felt like an ordinary Wednesday morning, my entire life rewrote itself with two text messages. The first, "We're done. I found someone better." That was my wife, Jessica. We'd been married for 20 years. No warning, no long conversation, just a text. The second one hit even harder. "I've already moved our retirement funds to my account. Keep the house." Except here's the thing Jessica never understood, not even after all those years together. I'm the one who built the financial monitoring systems used by major banks across the state. I don't just check balances. I designed the protocols that catch fraud before it becomes damage. When Jessica made that transfer, thinking she was slipping away clean, she set off every alarm I'd spent years perfecting. Account freeze, fraud investigation, automatic hold. I didn't even have to lift my finger. The system took care of it before I finished my morning coffee. I sat there at my desk, staring at her message, not with anger, but with something colder: clarity. For 2 decades, I'd triple-checked our taxes, set up emergency funds, monitored our investment growth down to the last decimal. Jessica always teased me about it. "You worry too much about money." Maybe, but it meant that on the day she decided to erase me with a single transfer, she ended up erasing herself instead. By lunchtime, I had already received the first round of fraud alerts from the bank. 6-figure transfers flagged, deposits frozen pending investigation. I knew she'd be sitting wherever she was, maybe a hotel room, maybe some sleek condo with the better person, wondering why her account balance showed 0. And I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just opened my laptop, checked a client system for vulnerabilities, and sipped my coffee like it was any other day. Because while Jessica thought she was leaving me behind, all she'd really done was step into the exact system I'd designed to protect us both, especially from people like her. That first night, after Jessica sent those 2 text messages and vanished on her business trip, I didn't go out. I didn't call friends. I sat in my home office with just the monitor light and the quiet hum of systems running in the background, watching the fraud triggers fire off one by one. Jessica flew to Chicago for her so-called marketing conference. I knew her itinerary, at least the one she shared. But while she boarded a plane believing she'd walked away with $800,000, my systems flagged every withdrawal attempt in real time. It wasn't just some bank's generic fraud protection. I'd written the core of it myself when I built CeeLo Bank's internal security division. Tiered protocols, dual authentication triggers, hidden safeguards even most analysts wouldn't notice until it was too late. Jessica had picked the one week where I happened to be revising that same system for a government audit. She thought she was clever, thought I'd be too busy to notice. She even timed her transfers at 2 a.m., a tactic I'd seen before. As I sat there, logs filled the screen. 0213, unauthorized transfer attempt detected. 0215, account frozen, pending review. 0219, secondary account flagged for suspicious activity. Each one lit up like an ember, and each one felt like someone driving a nail through my ribs. Not because of the money, but because of how precisely she'd planned it. We'd been married 20 years. For the first 15, I'd handled every tax filing, every refinancing, every investment account. Jessica had always said, "That's your world, Elliot. I trust you." I believed her. I'd triple-checked our retirement projections every quarter, reviewed property valuations every spring, set up legacy accounts just in case something ever happened to one of us. I didn't do it for control. I did it because I thought it was the responsible thing to do. Now, that responsibility felt like a trap I'd walked myself into. The house was quiet. No messages from Jessica except those two. No calls. I didn't even feel anger yet, just the emptiness where trust had been. By 4 a.m., the bank compliance team had reached out. They wanted verification of the flagged activity. I confirmed it all, sent them timestamps, logged into my private monitoring system and uploaded supporting documents. My own wife listed as the trigger source. By noon, I received confirmation. Account freeze confirmed. Full investigation underway. Jessica, wherever she was, likely in a downtown Chicago hotel with whoever she'd decided was her better, was about to learn how unforgiving financial systems could be. I stepped away from the monitors and made myself a sandwich. I didn't eat it. I just stared at it, wondering when exactly the woman I married had become someone who could do this. It wasn't the betrayal that hurt. It was the methodical precision. She didn't just leave me. She used everything I'd taught her about caution, about planning, and turned it back on me like a weapon. I left the sandwich untouched, pulled my laptop onto the kitchen counter, and opened up one more file. Contingency Plan. Asset Security, Tier 2. I'd written it 5 years earlier. Never thought I'd need it. Now I did. 2 days after the night I'd locked down everything from our retirement accounts to my personal fail-safe triggers, Jessica called. It wasn't the teary, apologetic voice I'd imagined. It was clipped, controlled, just like she sounded in those marketing calls I'd overheard for years. "Elliot," she said, "my cards aren't working." I leaned against the kitchen counter, coffee growing cold in my hand. "It tends to happen," I said, "when you trigger federal compliance alerts." Silence on her end. But it wasn't the kind of silence that meant guilt. It was the kind that someone was already calculating their next move. "I just need access to some funds until this clears." "It's not going to clear, Jessica." Another pause. Then she added, "You don't want this to get messier than it needs to." That was her tell. The shift from playing innocent to playing tough. And that was the moment I felt something deeper than disappointment. A quiet, hollow anger. Not hot rage, cold strategy. I'm not the one who made it messy. And I ended the call. But that wasn't what really set things in motion. 30 minutes later, while reviewing my usual system dashboards, I spotted something I hadn't expected. A second set of transactions, flagged by my corporate fraud monitoring, not my personal system. This was through Urbanus Union security logs. Jessica's corporate email was linked. That was the moment I realized she wasn't just trying to drain our retirement. She'd been siphoning money from client accounts through corporate systems, corporate embezzlement. And it got worse. The trail didn't end with her. There were cross-references with another internal account, Logan Pierce, one of her junior marketing analysts. The two of them were tied into transfer patterns I recognized. Small sums, just under reporting thresholds, moved through shell accounts using Urbanus clients' marketing budgets as cover. Two people I'd trusted.
one as a wife, one as a colleague's junior partner, were building a side empire by stealing from both our lives. That was the exact moment everything turned in my head. No more wondering if I'd missed something, no more thinking maybe I'd been too cautious. I hadn't. I'd been patient, quiet, calculated. By 3 p.m., I was in my lawyer's office with William Brooks. I laid out the system logs, the flagged transactions, and Jessica's connection to Logan. He didn't say much at first, just looked through the files, page by page. "This," he said, finally, "is federal. Wire fraud, corporate embezzlement, and it's airtight." I leaned back, arms crossed. "That's what I figured." He nodded slowly. "Do you want to file immediately?" "I want to hit them before they even realize what's happening." By that evening, I'd also met with Orbanus Union's compliance officer, Marlene Cruz. We'd worked 10 years. She knew my reputation. When I showed her the flagged logs, her face shifted from skeptical to stone-cold professional. In seconds. "This," she said quietly, "goes above HR. This goes straight to legal." She dialed the head of corporate risk assessment as I stood by. Silent. Letting the weight of it all land. It wasn't just about me anymore. Jessica's betrayal wasn't a domestic issue. It was federal crime territory now. The odd thing was, none of it made me shake. I wasn't furious. I wasn't panicking. I was still. Because I had the system on my side. And the system doesn't care if the criminal wears a wedding ring. By midnight, court filings were submitted. Emergency motions went through. Federal investigators were looped in by Monday morning. The betrayal was officially out of my hands. And Jessica had no idea yet.
By the third week of the investigation, I wasn't just an observer anymore. I was an active part of the case. Federal agents from the Richmond Financial Crimes Task Force set up camp at Orbanus Union's compliance office, converting 2 conference rooms into their own war room. And every morning at 8 a.m. sharp, I was there with them, pulling up reports, reviewing flagged transactions, matching account numbers. What gave me a strange kind of satisfaction was realizing Jessica and Logan's network wasn't just big, it was sloppy. They'd routed transfers through shell companies, sure, but I built our monitoring system to look for patterns most wouldn't notice: recurring dollar amounts, split deposits landing within seconds of each other, duplicate routing numbers hidden in different files. One morning, as we reviewed the week's captures, Agent Sarah Flynn leaned across the table. "Elliot," she said quietly, "you realize we wouldn't have caught this half as fast without your system?" I just nodded. It was never about catching Jessica. It was about protecting what was mine. And by now, I understood that wasn't just our retirement fund or my job. It was my name, my reputation, my peace of mind. On the 4th Monday, I got a call I wasn't expecting. Jessica's lawyer, through my own attorney. "She's proposing a settlement," William told me, the voice neutral. "House sale proceeds split. She'll walk away from retirement accounts. No criminal testimony required from you if you sign." I laughed. First time in weeks. I said, "Tell her no. Tell her she gets nothing." "Elliot, I have to say, most people would take the money and step back." "That's exactly why I'm not most people," I replied. The same afternoon, I got a text from Frank Donnelly, one of my long-term clients at Orbis. He'd heard the news. "Respect," Frank's message read. "Quietest takedown I've ever seen." That's how I wanted it. No press conferences, no social media rants, just letting the system I'd built do its job. By Thursday evening, Jessica and Logan were both arrested. I didn't watch the live news broadcast, but my niece Megan texted me a screenshot. Jessica in handcuffs, escorted by 2 federal marshals, wearing the same coat she'd packed for that Dallas trip. I didn't feel triumph. I felt something cleaner. Relief. When William called me the next morning to confirm the final property rulings, house title in my name, all retirement assets frozen pending release to me, he asked, "You really don't want her to have anything?" "I really don't. And not because of anger. Because she chose this." That weekend, I cleared out Jessica's last things from the house. It felt less like erasing a person and more like vacuuming dust under furniture. Routine, methodical. By Sunday, the house felt like mine for the first time in 22 years. The federal agents wrapped up their work 2 weeks later. Agent Flynn shook my hand before she left. "If you ever want a job building systems like that for us, you know where to find me." Appreciated, but I like my quiet. That's what stuck with me after everything. Quiet victories. I didn't need headlines or revenge fantasies. I didn't need Jessica to cry and apologize. I just needed my own life back, clean and simple. And walking through my house that night, standing in front of the same kitchen window where I'd first checked my bank app that morning everything started, I finally felt like I had it. 3 months after Jessica's sentencing, I found myself in a place I never imagined I'd end up. Standing in front of a classroom full of graduate students at Old Dominion University. I wasn't there as a victim. I wasn't there as the guy whose wife cleaned out the retirement accounts. I was there as a lecturer, teaching Financial Fraud Detection 101. And as I clicked through my slides, watching eager faces take notes, I realized I'd found something closer to peace than I'd felt in years. It didn't happen overnight. After Jessica's conviction, 18 years federal, Logan with 10, there were still weeks of paperwork, interviews, follow-up depositions. My old colleagues at Orbis Union gave me the space I needed. Michelle, my team lead, quietly arranged for part-time hours while I transitioned out of the corporate trenches and into consulting. But it wasn't about hiding. It was about building something that lasted, something clean. By mid-September, my fraud detection system had been officially licensed by 3 regional banks. My name didn't show on the front page, no press releases, no vanity articles, but every time an alert pinged, every time a suspicious pattern got flagged, I knew. It was there because I'd lived through what those systems were meant to prevent. That's why I agreed to teach. One night, after reviewing reports at Orbis, Michelle slid a folder across my desk. "Norfolk Business School. Guest lecturer opportunity. You've got the experience." At first, I wasn't sure. But walking into that room, clean whiteboards, rows of quiet students, it felt right. My first session, I told them a version of the story. Sanitized. No names, no personal drama, just a case study of how someone in-house can bypass traditional controls, and how building personalized systems can save not just companies, but families. The students asked good questions about transaction thresholds, about IP tracking, about redundancy and error handling. They didn't care about Jessica or what she'd done. They cared about what they could learn. That's what recognition looked like for me now. Not in a courtroom, not in a newspaper, in a lecture hall, helping others spot the signs before it was too late. One Friday evening after class, I stopped by a local cafe in downtown Norfolk. Megan, my niece, now fully graduated and working compliance herself, joined me. "They're using your system as a training module at her firm," she said over coffee. "I didn't," I admitted, smiling. She tilted her head. "Do you ever think about seeing her again, Jessica?" I shook my head slowly. "No, that part of the story's closed. And I meant it. My life wasn't defined by her anymore. It wasn't about anger or loss. It was about systems, principles, and quiet routines that worked. That night I walked home through downtown's quiet streets, city lights reflecting off wet pavement after a short rain. My house wasn't large, one floor, clean lines, no spare rooms filled with ghosts. But it was mine. Paid off. Honest. Before bed, I checked the monitoring dashboard one last time. All clear.
"6 months after the courtroom doors closed behind me for the final time, I stood alone in my new home in Asheville. Quiet, steady, nothing flashy. No spare bedrooms filled with someone else's plans, no reminders of a marriage that had unraveled with a single text message. It wasn't just a house, it was peace. Earned. In those 6 months, I didn't chase revenge or cling to bitterness. I focused on building again, this time with clearer priorities. My systems at work evolved too, now integrated with regional banks and smaller credit unions. What once protected just my own accounts now helped hundreds of families sleep better at night. I'd meet people, colleagues, students in the fraud detection class I'd been asked to teach, and inevitably the question would come, how did you spot it before it was too late? The answer? I didn't. Not completely. Systems can catch the transactions, the anomalies. But real trust? That's human. And when it breaks, all you can do is protect yourself, stand up, and choose to build forward instead of looking back. Jessica's name came up now and then, a letter forwarded by my lawyer, an email flagged as spam. I never opened them, not out of hatred, out of clarity. Some chapters end and they're not meant to be reread. The last lesson I carry is simple. Life isn't about controlling others. It's about controlling your own systems, financial, emotional, personal. Make them strong enough to catch what needs catching, and quiet enough not to disturb your peace the rest of the time. If you've read or listened this far, remember this. Strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the steady hum of a server catching fraud before anyone notices. Sometimes it's standing up from a life that burned down and quietly building again. Thank you for being here. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your own journey. Drop a comment below. Have you ever had to rebuild after betrayal or loss? And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life lessons wrapped in real-life stories.